Hi, I'm Art Kaplan. I'm at the Division of Medical Ethics at NYU Grossman School of Medicine. Well, I came across an interesting article recently in the Wall Street Journal, and it was exploring the question of when and if physicians, and I guess you could include nurses in this too, should respond to a medical emergency on an airplane. And I thought this is really an interesting ethics question to examine. It covers obviously anybody who is a physician or a nurse. Uh, so a lot of people could be impacted potentially by having a medical incident with a pilot or a stewardess or a passenger on a plane. So, what are our duties? What's the obligations? What rights do individuals have in these settings? What are the liabilities? And I did look around a little bit. By the way, you might be thinking, what about on places like cruise ships? Well, it turns out that the big ones do have doctors on board and limited medical facilities, but they have them. Little smaller voyages, probably similar to the airplane situation. If you were on something that had 25 passengers and that sort of thing. I know some of you may be thinking, aside from airplanes, of what other situations could this question of what are my duties to help? It could come up on a big cruise ship, but I looked at that, and all the big cruise lines, they have a medical doctor on board. Maybe a small trip, 25 people, 50 people, maybe on a ferry, something like that. It could come up in that context. Train trips, going across the country or down in the Northeast Corridor on Amtrak. I could imagine a medical emergency breaking out, that there could be a call for someone to help. And you may have other settings, subways, buses, situations where you're in some public space of travel, and the question comes up, what do you do? So, first of all, I think there is a moral duty to try and render help. I think people, if there's an unruly passenger and they're threatening people on the plane or threatening a stewardess, if you're physically able, I do think you have a duty to step in and try and restrain or break up or reduce the conflict situation, even if you're just a passenger, even if you're just a stranger. You want to maintain, obviously, a nonviolent stance. You don't want to do anything where you're harming the other person, but trying to get them to calm down, trying to get them in a seat, working with other people maybe to restrain them without hurting them. Those might be the kind of duties we'd say anybody would have these days who's traveling. Sadly, when different a different ethos may prevail, and there's more violence, more drunkenness, more trouble on some of our public and commercial transportation. I think doctors, nurses do have a special duty also to help if the stewardess or the pilot says they've got a medical emergency, having skills, having training that might be able to assist someone who's in trouble. I do think that requires both identifying yourself and trying to respond. However, I'm well aware that not every medical emergency is something that falls into the expertise that you might have on a plane. So somebody who's a pathologist may not be in the best position to help out if someone's having a seizure. Someone who's a psychiatrist may not be in the best position to help out if someone's having a heart attack. So you're limited in some ways by the expertise that you can bring, by what you can do. I think you could say to people, I'm a doctor, but I'm not in this area. I can rely on what I learned in med school recently or a long time ago, or what I know to be true just in keeping my education up. Try to do your best, but there may be situations in which what has happened, you don't have the skill set or the expertise to really be of much assistance. And so I don't think you're obliged to try and do what you can't do. But if you can render aid and you feel confident that you know how to clear an airway or do some CPR or do other interventions that might help someone who's in trouble, I do think there's a moral duty. Is there a legal duty? Actually, no, there really isn't. We've never really recognized a legal obligation to stop and aid someone. I think the state of Vermont has the closest law to that about rendering aid in a traffic accident situation, but even there, it's a weak law. I don't think there's any law applying to air travel or boats or trains that says you're going to be liable if you don't jump in and if you don't identify yourself. So this is an ethics duty. It's not one of law. And I think if you try and do your best, try and follow what you believe to be true, you're not going to get in any legal liability, even if someone dies after you try to help them, even if someone says you injured them in trying to help them. If you do the basic standard of care in responding to emergencies and responding to situations where someone is in trouble, I think you're going to be okay in terms of any liability or dangerous exposure to the legal system from trying to render aid. If you go beyond what you know how to do, that may pose a problem. But if you're within the realm of what you believe to be true and what you believe to be best and what you believe you're capable of doing, then I really think you're going to be okay. There are other situations, someone giving birth on the plane. Some people are comfortable trying to help out there, some people a little less so, but that's certainly a different situation than someone getting into trouble because they are having an incident that might kill them or disable them. There are also situations where someone might actually be having anxiety or some type of mental problem and fear of flying or worries or something is troubling them, where a different type of expertise than knowing how to do a tracheotomy might be called upon. So there are a variety of situations that might trigger responses where a doctor felt, I can't handle that, but I can handle this. There are a variety of situations where somebody might say, is this patient dead? Where you might take vitals and say, it appears to me they have died. And airlines have procedures to handle that when a passenger dies on a plane. And there may be situations that involve psychiatric or obstetrical issues that require different types of expertise. Maybe or maybe not a response is possible. So bottom line, don't let your reach extend beyond your grasp. That is to say, stick with what you know. Try to help if you can. You might ask around and see if others are also there who could help as well. Maybe there are people with different skills that could help out and bolster an intervention. But I think part of being a doctor, part of commanding the public's respect, is when you step up morally and say, within the limits of what I know, within the limits of what I'm comfortable doing, I'm going to try and help. I'm Art Caplan. I'm at the Division of Medical Ethics at NYU's Grossman School of Medicine. Thank you for watching.